Hey coin fans and treasure hunters, welcome to World Rare Coins, the place where history, mystery, and massive value collide in the world of rare US coins. If you think a quarter is just pocket change, think again. Here, we uncover hidden gems, minting mistakes, and mind-blowing stories behind coins that collectors dream about. Ready to discover coins that could change your life? Then stick around, because you're about to enter the thrilling world of rare coins like never before. Let's get started. Top 1 today, we're diving into one of the most talked about quarters of the modern era, the United States of America Washington quarter dollar crossing the Delaware from the year 2021. At first glance, it may look like just another coin you might find in your change. But the truth is this quarter is special. Not only does it carry important historical symbolism, but certain rare versions of this coin, especially with minting errors and in pristine condition, can be worth thousands of dollars. And yes, one extremely rare example has been valued at an unbelievable amount, which I will reveal at the very end of this video. So stay tuned, listen carefully, and let's explore the full story of this fascinating coin. Let's begin with its design. The obverse of the 2021 quarter shows the classic portrait of George Washington, the nation's first president, created by John Flanagan back in 1932. But the real magic of this coin is on the reverse. Instead of the eagle design that collectors saw for decades or the state quarter designs that followed, the 2021 quarter brings back an iconic moment in American history: General George Washington crossing the Delaware River during the Revolutionary War in 1776. This bold and powerful image, created by designer Benjamin Sowards and sculpted by Michael Gaudioso, shows Washington standing at the bow of a boat, leading his troops through icy waters toward a surprise attack that changed the course of history. This design is not just artistic, it's symbolic. It reminds us of leadership, courage, and determination. For collectors, the crossing the Delaware quarter is historically significant because it was issued for only 1 year, in 2021, bridging the gap between the America the Beautiful Quarter series, which ended in 2020, and the American Women Quarters program, which began in 2022. That makes the 2021 crossing the Delaware quarter a transitional coin, produced for a very short time, which already gives it collector appeal. Now, let's talk about rarity and what makes some of these coins so valuable. Most 2021 quarters are common and will only ever be worth 25 cents. But within the massive mintages, there are unique coins that stand out. Coins that collectors will pay serious money for. First, condition is everything. A regular coin that's been circulating in people's pockets or wallets is considered worn, and while it's collectible, it's not rare. But if you find a 2021 crossing the Delaware quarter in mint state, especially one graded MS67 or higher by professional grading companies like PCGS or NGC, the value jumps dramatically. Collectors chase the finest examples, and because very few survive in perfect condition, high-grade coins can fetch hundreds or even thousands of dollars. But where the real excitement begins is with minting errors. The US Mint produces millions of coins, and mistakes happen. These errors are rare, but when they occur, they create coins that collectors go crazy for. For example, some 2021 crossing the Delaware quarters have been discovered with doubled dies, where parts of the design, like the words "In God We Trust," "Liberty," or even details in Washington's portrait, appear doubled under magnification. These double die errors are striking and instantly increase the value of the coin. Other error varieties include off-center strikes, where the design is shifted noticeably from the center, giving the coin a dramatic and unusual look. There are also die cracks and cuts, where breaks in the die cause raised lines or blobs of metal on the coin's surface. Each of these errors makes the coin unique, and the more dramatic the mistake, the higher the potential value. Another fascinating type of error involves planchet mistakes. Imagine a 2021 quarter accidentally struck on a blank mint for a dime or even a foreign coin. These rare misstrikes are incredibly collectible because they represent one-of-a-kind accidents that the mint never intended to release. There are also proof coins, struck at the San Francisco Mint, that were made with special polished dies to create sharp, mirror-like surfaces. While proof coins are collectible on their own, any proof with an error, such as doubling, striking flaws, or even misaligned dies, becomes especially desirable. For many collectors, The 2021 crossing the Delaware quarter is more than just a coin. It's a piece of history. It marks the transition from one coin program to another. It honors one of the most heroic moments in America's fight for independence, and it exists in a single-year design, which adds to its rarity. So now, the big question: what is the value of this coin? While most of them are worth only 25 cents, the rare examples with dramatic errors, or those in flawless condition, can be worth thousands. And in one extraordinary case, a rare error variety of the 2021 Washington quarter crossing the Delaware has been valued at an astounding $73,000. Yes, you heard that right. $73,000 for a single quarter from 2021. That's the thrill of coin collecting. It shows that even the coins in your pocket change could hold secrets of immense value. That's why it's so important to check every coin carefully. Look for doubling, inspect the details, examine the condition, because you never know when you might be holding a life-changing treasure. Top 2, we're diving into one of the most iconic and unforgettable coins in United States history, the Washington quarter with the dual date 1776 to 1976, commonly known as the bicentennial quarter. Now, you may have seen this coin before. In fact, millions of them were struck by the U.S. Mint in 1975 and 1976 to celebrate America's 200th birthday. But what makes this coin so fascinating isn't just its patriotic design. It's the incredible story behind it, the errors that slipped through mint production, and the rare conditions that can transform what looks like an ordinary quarter into a coin worth an unbelievable fortune. Stick around until the very end, because I'll reveal just how much one of these rare bicentennial quarters has sold for. And trust me, it will blow your mind. Let's start with the design, because this is what makes the bicentennial quarter instantly recognizable. On the obverse, you'll see the familiar portrait of George Washington created by John Flanagan in 1932. But look closer. The date beneath Washington isn't just 1 year. It reads 1776 to 1976. That dual date marks the 200th anniversary of American independence, making this quarter a proud symbol of national history. Now turn the coin over, and this is where the magic really happens. Instead of the traditional eagle, the reverse design features a colonial drummer, often called the drummer boy, along with a torch surrounded by 13 stars, representing the original 13 colonies. This design was created by Jack L. Ahr and chosen through a nationwide competition. For millions of Americans in the 1970s, finding this coin in circulation was like holding a piece of the country's birthday celebration in their hands. But not all bicentennial quarters are created equal. While many were produced for general circulation, others were struck in special sets, including 40% silver coins made for collectors. These silver bicentennial quarters were sold in proof and uncirculated sets, and because they contain silver, they're already more valuable than their face value. Over time, their rarity and demand among collectors has only increased. Now, let's talk about what truly excites collectors: the rare errors and high-grade examples. These are the coins that separate everyday bicentennial quarters from the ones worth serious money. One of the most famous error types is the doubled die. In some bicentennial quarters, elements of the design, like the lettering Liberty, In God We Trust, or even details in the drummer's design, appear doubled. Under magnification, this doubling is obvious, and collectors will pay big money for these kinds of errors. Another type of error is the off-center strike. Imagine a coin where the design is not properly centered, but shifted noticeably to one side. The more dramatic the shift, the rarer the coin, and in some cases, these off-center bicentennial quarters can command extremely high prices. Then there are die cracks and cuts, where breaks or chips in the minting dies leave unusual raised marks or blobs of metal on the coin's surface. These errors might look strange at first, but for collectors, they are fascinating, unique fingerprints of the minting process gone wrong. Some of the most dramatic errors are the wrong planchet strikes. Believe it or not, there are bicentennial quarters that were accidentally struck on blanks meant for other coins, such as dimes or half dollars. These wrong metal errors are extraordinarily rare, and when authenticated, they can sell for jaw-dropping amounts. But rarity isn't just about errors. Condition also plays a massive role. Coins that have been circulating for decades usually show scratches, nicks, and wear. but examples that were carefully preserved and remain in mint state condition, graded MS-67, MS-68, or higher, are incredibly scarce. Collectors pay a premium for coins in pristine condition, and bicentennial quarters graded at the top levels have broken records at auction. And let's not forget proof coins. Struck with polished dies to create a sharp, mirror-like finish, proof bicentennial quarters are stunning to look at. A flawless silver proof with an error, or one graded PR70, can be a dream find for a serious collector. All of this makes the bicentennial quarter not just a nostalgic keepsake, but a real treasure hunt. Every time you come across one, it's worth giving it a close look. You could be holding a piece of history that's far more valuable than you think. Now, the moment you've been waiting for, the value of the rarest bicentennial quarter. While most are worth only 25 cents, and some silver versions fetch a few dollars, there are rare error coins and high-grade examples that reach staggering prices. In one exceptional case, a rare bicentennial quarter was valued at an extraordinary $83,000. Yes, you heard that right. $83,000 for a single Washington quarter dated 1776, 1976. That's the excitement of coin collecting. A coin that most people overlook as spare change could actually be a life-changing discovery. So the next time you see a bicentennial quarter, take a careful look. You just might be holding a treasure. Top 3, we're talking about a coin that looks ordinary at first glance, but hides an incredible history and value. The United States of America Washington quarter from the year 1965 to now. Most people see a 1965 quarter and think it's just pocket change, a simple 25-cent piece. But when you look closely, when you really understand what happened in American coinage during that time, you realize that this coin is so much more. In fact, certain rare examples of the 1965 Washington quarter are considered treasures, highly sought after by collectors all over the world. And by the end of this video, I'll reveal just how much one of these rare coins has sold for. And it's a number that will absolutely surprise you. Let's start with a bit of history. The year 1965 was a turning point in U.S. coinage. Up until 1964, Washington quarters were struck in 90% silver. But because of a nationwide coin shortage and rising silver prices, the U.S. Mint decided to remove silver from quarters altogether. Starting in 1965, Washington quarters were struck in what we call a clad composition, a copper core sandwiched between outer layers of nickel. This decision marked the end of silver coinage for everyday circulation. What makes this especially interesting is that during the transition, mistakes happened. The Mint was producing both 1964 silver quarters and the new 1965 clad quarters around the same time. That overlap led to one of the most famous minting errors in U.S. history. Some 1965 dated Washington quarters were accidentally struck on leftover 90% silver planchets meant for the 1964 issue. Yes, you heard that right. There are 1,965 quarters out there that are not the standard copper-nickel clad, but are actually silver. Finding one of these is like striking gold, or in this case, silver, in your pocket change. Collectors will pay thousands for these rare, transitional error coins. But that's not the only thing that makes 1965 quarters valuable. Condition plays a huge role. Remember, most of these coins went straight into circulation, getting scratched, worn, and dinged up over the years. But if you find a 1965 Washington quarter in pristine condition, what we call mint state, especially MS-67 or higher, you're looking at a coin that is far from ordinary. High-grade examples are rare, and when they show up at auction, they often sell for incredible amounts. Now let's talk about other errors. There are double die obverse and reverses where parts of the lettering or design elements appear doubled. These can sometimes be spotted in the words, "In God We Trust," "Liberty," or in the eagle's feathers on the reverse. Then there are off-center strikes, where the design is noticeably shifted to one side, leaving part of the coin blank. The more dramatic the off-center strike, the higher the value. There are also coins struck with broad strikes, where the collar that holds the coin in place during striking malfunctions, leaving the quarter wider and flatter than normal. Collectors love these kinds of errors because they show a clear mistake from the minting process. And let's not forget about wrong planchet errors. In rare cases, coins were struck on planchets meant for dimes, pennies, or even foreign coins. Imagine holding a 1965 Washington quarter that weighs less than it should because it was struck on the wrong metal blank. That's the kind of rarity that collectors dream about. What makes the 1965 quarter fascinating is that it represents both a major change in U.S. coinage and a treasure chest of possibilities when it comes to rare varieties and minting errors. For casual collectors, it's a reminder of the moment America moved away from silver coinage. For serious numismatists, it's a thrilling challenge to search for those elusive transitional silver errors, high-grade mint state pieces, or rare striking mistakes. So, if you happen to come across a 1965 quarter, don't dismiss it as just 25 cents. Check its weight. Silver quarters weigh slightly more than clad ones. Look closely under magnification for doubling, off-center strikes, or unusual details. And above all, if you find one in nearly flawless condition, consider getting it graded. You never know. You could be holding something truly special. Now here's the part you've been waiting for. The incredible value of one of the rarest 1965 Washington quarters ever sold. While most of them are worth just a quarter, rare transitional errors and high-grade examples can reach unbelievable heights. In fact, one extremely rare Washington quarter from 1965 was valued at an astonishing $80,000. Yes, you heard that correctly. $80,000 for a single quarter. That's the magic of coin collecting. What looks like spare change to most people could actually be a hidden fortune waiting to be discovered. So the next time you find a 1965 Washington quarter, take a closer look. It might just change your life. Top 4. We are diving deep into the world of the United States of America Washington quarter from the year 1971, a coin that might seem ordinary to most, but has secrets that make collectors search for it day and night. At first glance, the 1971 Washington quarter looks like a regular 25-cent piece. It has the familiar portrait of George Washington on the obverse side, designed by John Flanagan, and the heraldic eagle on the reverse, which was standard for quarters before the state quarter series began in 1999. Millions of these coins were struck at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, and because of that, many people assume the 1971 quarter isn't special. But the truth is, some rare varieties and minting errors from this year have made these coins incredibly valuable in the eyes of collectors. Let's start with a little bit of background. By 1971, quarters were already being struck in the copper-nickel clad composition, a change that began in 1965 when the U.S. Mint removed silver from circulation coins due to rising costs and hoarding. The 1971 quarter is part of that clad era, which means most of them are not made of silver. But here's where things get interesting. Mistakes happen at the mint, and transitional errors are among the most exciting discoveries. Some collectors have found 1971 quarters mistakenly struck on silver planchets left over from earlier coin production. These rare silver examples are almost impossible to find, but when they appear, they become instant treasures. Now, let's talk about the errors that make the 1971 Washington quarter so desirable. One of the most famous is the double die error. Imagine looking at the coin and seeing doubled letters or design elements on George Washington's profile or in the wording, "In God We Trust." This doubling effect is the result of a mistake during the die creation process, and collectors love them because they are visually striking and easy to recognize. Another error is the off-center strike. This happens when the blank planchet is not perfectly aligned during the striking process, resulting in part of the design being missing or shifted. A small off-center might not add too much value, but if you find a quarter where the strike is significantly off, say 20, 30, or even 50%, then you're holding on to something really special. Then there are broad strike errors, which happen when the collar that normally holds the coin in place during striking fails. These coins look stretched or wider than usual, and because they stand out so much, they attract serious collector interest. Another fascinating error for 1971 quarters is the wrong planchet strike. Sometimes coins were struck on planchets intended for other denominations. Imagine a quarter struck on a nickel planchet or even a foreign coin blank. Not only are these extremely rare, but they are also highly collectible because they represent major minting mistakes. But rarity isn't just about errors. Condition plays a huge role in value too. Most 1971 quarters went straight into circulation, meaning they were used in everyday transactions, dropped into vending machines, and carried in pockets. Over time, this wears down the coin's details. But if you manage to find a 1971 Washington quarter in mint state condition, especially graded MS66 or higher, then you have something much rarer than the average example. Collectors will pay big money for coins in pristine condition because they are so difficult to come by. What's fascinating about the 1971 Washington quarter is how it blends history, transition, and rarity. It tells the story of America moving fully into the copper-nickel-clad era while still leaving room for surprises through minting errors and condition rarities. To a casual spender, this coin is just 25 cents, but to a collector, it's a potential jackpot waiting to be uncovered. Think about it. How many people have held a 1971 quarter without even realizing it could be special? How many have dropped it into a parking meter or spent it on a soda without knowing it could one day bring in thousands of dollars? That's what makes coin collecting so thrilling. It's the hunt, the history, and the possibility that even the most ordinary-looking coin could turn out to be a hidden gem.so. Coin lovers, if you come across a 1971 Washington quarter, don't overlook it. Examine it carefully. Weigh it to see if it's heavier, which might suggest a silver planchet. Look closely at the letters and details for doubling. Check for off-center strikes or other unusual features. And if the coin looks flawless with sharp details and no scratches, you may want to have it graded because condition alone could make it very valuable. Now, here's the part you've been waiting for. The incredible value of the rarest examples of the 1971 Washington quarter. While most are worth only face value, certain rare error coins and high-grade examples have sold for staggering amounts. In fact, one of the rarest Washington quarters from this year has been valued at an astonishing $78,000. Yes, you heard that correctly. $78,000 for a single quarter. This is why coin collecting never loses its charm. It's not just about money. It's about history, mystery, and the excitement of discovery. What seems ordinary to one person could be life-changing for another. So keep searching, keep collecting, and who knows, you might be the next lucky collector to find a hidden treasure in your change. Top 5. We are about to explore one of the most fascinating coins in United States history, the Washington quarter from the year 1967. At first glance, it may look like an ordinary 25-cent piece that you've probably seen countless times, but I promise you, once you understand its history and the hidden secrets that some examples hold, you'll never look at this coin the same way again. So, sit back, listen very carefully, and enjoy this journey into the world of numismatics. The Washington quarter has been a staple of American coinage since 1932, designed by John Flanagan to honor the 200th birthday of George Washington, the nation's first president. But the year 1967 was no ordinary year in the history of U.S. coinage. In fact, this date marks a turning point because of the transition away from silver in circulating coins. Prior to 1965, quarters were made of 90% silver. But rising silver prices led to hoarding, and the government had to act. That's when the Coinage Act of 1965 introduced copper-nickel-clad coinage, which remained in use for decades afterward. Now, here's the twist. In 1965, 1966, and 1967, the U.S. Mint suspended mint marks to discourage collectors from hoarding new coins. This means that if you look at a 1967 quarter, you won't see a D for Denver or an S for San Francisco. All quarters from that year look the same, with no mint mark at all. While this may seem like a disadvantage for collectors, it actually makes 1967 a very interesting year because all pieces are anonymous in origin. Yet certain errors and varieties make them incredibly valuable. One of the most exciting aspects of 1967 Washington quarters is the possibility of transitional errors. Remember, just a couple of years earlier, the mint had switched from silver to clad coinage. Every once in a while, mistakes happen, and silver planchets get mixed in with newer copper-nickel blanks. Imagine finding a 1967 quarter that's actually struck in silver. It would be like striking gold for a collector. These transitional errors are extremely rare, but they do exist, and when they surface, they command massive prices. Another class of errors that make the 1967 quarter so special are double die errors. This occurs during the die-making process when the design elements are accidentally struck more than once in slightly different positions. The result is letters, numbers, or even George Washington's profile appearing doubled. These doubled dies are highly sought after because they are easy to recognize, and because they represent a significant minting mistake that slipped into circulation. Next, we have off-center strikes. If you've ever seen a coin where part of the design is missing because the planchet wasn't centered properly, you know how dramatic these errors can look. A minor off-center might not bring much of a premium, but a quarter with a dramatic off-center strike, where a large part of the design is missing yet the date remains visible, can be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on the degree of the error. There are also broad strike errors, which happen when the collar that normally holds the coin in place during striking fails to do its job. The result is a coin that looks stretched, wider than normal, and often lacking the traditional reeded edge. These broad strikes are unusual and instantly catch the eye of collectors who love oddities. Then we can't forget wrong planchet errors. Imagine a quarter being struck on a blank intended for a dime or even a foreign coin. These are some of the most spectacular mint errors you could ever hope to find because they create coins that look completely out of place. A 1967 Washington quarter struck on the wrong planchet is the type of discovery that gets coin collectors talking and bidding furiously at auctions. But even without errors, condition alone can make a huge difference in value. Most 1967 quarters were used heavily in everyday circulation. Think about it. They were spent on gas, groceries, vending machines, and parking meters. Very few were saved in pristine condition. That's why a 1967 Washington quarter in high mint state grades, such as MS-66 or MS-67, is so rare. Add to that the possibility of a proof-like strike or exceptionally strong details, and you're looking at a coin that can be highly desirable even without a major error. What makes the 1967 quarter so fascinating is that it represents a turning point in U.S. coin history. It's a coin from the era when silver was gone, mint marks were removed, and the public's trust in circulating coinage was being restored. It carries a piece of that turbulent history, and because of the quirks of minting in that era, it also carries opportunities for collectors to find something extraordinary in what appears to be an ordinary coin. So here's the takeaway. If you come across a 1967 Washington quarter, don't ignore it. Look carefully. Weigh it. If it feels heavy like silver, you may have stumbled upon a transitional error. Examine the lettering and numbers closely for signs of doubling. Check if the strike looks off-center, stretched, or unusual. And above all, if it appears flawless and shiny, it may be worth sending for grading, because condition alone can transform this everyday coin into a prize worth serious money. And now, for the moment that collectors and treasure hunters wait for. While most 1967 quarters are only worth face value, some rare examples with dramatic errors or found in near-perfect condition have shocked the coin world with their prices. In fact, the rarest known examples of the 1967 Washington quarter have been valued at an extraordinary $74,000. Yes, $74,000 for a coin that many people would mistake for just loose change. That's the thrill of coin collecting. It's history, it's mystery, and it's the chance of turning something ordinary into something extraordinary. So keep looking, keep collecting, and remember, treasures can be hiding in plain sight. If you enjoyed today's deep dive into the 1967 Washington quarter, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you never miss another fascinating story from the world of rare and valuable coins. Until next time, happy hunting and happy collecting.